That's a little bit of a debate
Yeah.
in the scientific community. Definitely autism, definitely some of the others that I mentioned, OCD, ADHD, nonverbal learning disability. Sometimes people will say anxiety is in there, and there's reason for that.
Huh.
Sometimes they would even say depression is in there, and there's reason for that because people who are chronically depressed, their brains are actually a little bit different too.
Right.
But the ones that people think of the most, I would say, are autism and ADHD.
Right, right. Interestingly, it's the first time I've heard OCD under that umbrella.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are your thoughts around that? Like, how does that classify?
OCD is tricky.
Yeah.
Because it's a process. OCD is about having some sort of anxious emotion and then having some sort of process that you're trying to do to decrease that anxious emotion. So something I would be obsessing about and then feeling like, oh, what do I do to decrease this obsession? I'm thinking about it. I still feel anxious. Now I do a compulsion to remove that anxiety. So OCD is pretty descriptive as the process of what we're doing. But the type of person that is prone or vulnerable to OCD does have some neurological differences. And I think that's why it's under that category.
Yeah, interesting. Yes, I think ADHD, autism spectrum for sure when I think of neurodivergence.
Oh, yeah.
And, I think it's interesting, they talk about the statistics, 1 in 36 now of young kids identified as autistic or on the spectrum. ADHD, I'm no scientist, but I'm going to say 1 in 10.
Yeah.
It seems very prevalent.
Yeah. I heard as recently as just, a week or two ago, in our rural communities, it may be as frequent as 1 in 5.
No kidding.
Would be neurodivergent.
Huh.
And then about 1 in 11, 1 in 10 in our more densely populated areas.
What do you think the difference is?
I don't know exactly.
That's interesting.
I think that I definitely deserve some research.
It
but
does.
Yeah, I wouldn't venture to say right now because I just haven't looked into it.
Yeah. But, that's fascinating when you say that. It makes me immediately think of access to care, access to maybe quality, better health foods, access to medication. I don't know. All of that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's a.
And it's so new, right? So this world of neurodivergence has kind of just exploded in the last 10 years. We've had a lot of term changes and people are understanding it a little bit better now. And I think it will continue to evolve.
Right.
But there's definitely been a lot of research, which I'm grateful for, and a lot more need.
Yeah. So if you're able to answer this, if someone's parenting a younger school-age child, say, I don't know, 3 to 12 or 15, that's a broad range, but I'm just thinking of young parents who have younger children, and if they're noticing some things, what would they be on the lookout for, if you can speak to that?
So classic things that people talk about in terms of autism are like a rigid fixation, lots of repetitive things, maybe some difficulty understanding social nuances. Interestingly, for kids who are diagnosed with autism and for their peer group, we see kind of like a developmental trajectory that's pretty similar until about middle school.
Okay, interesting.
And that's when things get a lot more socially complex, right? And lots of things are going on. And so then we see kind of like a gap open up where friendships change. Maybe, someone who's neurodivergent isn't necessarily fitting in or capturing the social nuances or the differences. They're like, well, we've always been friends. Why wouldn't we be friends? I've always enjoyed playing Pokemon with you. Let's play more Pokemon.
Right.
Where there's kind of a leap forward in development for neurotypicals at that time.
Yep.
And then we see the beginning of a gap. And then in about their early 20s or even towards their late 20s, we see the distance in that gap decrease. So we see neurodivergent young adults catching up to their peer group.
Oh, interesting.
It just takes a little bit more time, or maybe they need to have different life experiences to catch them up. And for some, maybe they'll surpass their peer group, and for some, maybe there will still be a gap. But the interesting thing about the way that Jason, our founder, describes brain development is for a typically developing person, you can think about a clay sphere. And development is adding more clay, and the more clay you have, you're you're rolling this into a spherical shape, into a ball.
Yeah.
The ball gets bigger and bigger. For an atypically developing person, we would say that there are peaks and valleys. So it's not a sphere. There's more clay, but there's some areas where they are so far advanced compared to their peer group, and some areas where there would be some sort of distance between them and their peer group, or the peer group is outperforming them.